I did this painting of line and wash of the Split Rock Lighthouse when I visited Minnesota last week, Lake Superior. And this was so much fun to do, and it really was pretty easy. So I thought I'd make this a tutorial. And this is what it was when I did the little quick small 5x7 one. This is the photo reference. I cut off this little end just to focus mainly on the lighthouse and the cliff there. So this is really pretty fun and easy to do. Here's a very simple outline. And what I'm going to do first, and I'm going to do the same technique I used here, where I just put in some color and then several different colors of the green, and then went back in and added the ink later. So that's what we're going to do, is paint and then add ink later. I put this roll of tape here to put my board at a little bit of angle so I can do the wash of blue for the sky. So I've got some phthalo blue here. Actually, it's Winsor blue, but that's the Winsor & Newton brand for phthalo. So I'm just going to do a wash of color of this beautiful blue. As long as you keep a bead of paint there, you will have a smooth wash. It won't start drying at the edge. I'm going to try to go around this lighthouse without being too messy. But even if I kind of mess up, the ink is going to help me at the end. There's a little blue inside that lighthouse, that area right there. I'm just using a round brush size 8, I believe. And around the trees, I'm not going to worry about being perfect because there'd be light through the trees. So I'm just going to go over this. Go into that some, doesn't matter. I still have this bead all the way across here. So I'm just going to start bringing it down. Okay, we have us a nice smooth wash of phthalo blue. I'm going to lay it flat to dry. I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of touch the edge here so that we don't have any paint that wants to bleed back into the painting. Around the tape, that can sometimes happen, but if it does, I don't worry about it. It'll just make it interesting. You could use a paper towel to dab in some clouds if you want. I'm going to leave it like this because it was such a bright blue day. I want to have a bright sky here. So let this dry. Okay, the sky is dry. So now I've got some colors mixed up over here. I've got some transparent yellow, sap green, ultramarine blue mixed with some sap green, and Quin Gold mixed with some Payne's Gray to get kind of a dark green. So I'm just going to loosely follow the colors on the reference photo here. I'm not worried too much about making it photorealistic. That's not my goal here. My goal is to get some greens on the paper and make it look like trees. I'm using this flat brush here. It's like a 1/4 inch flat, and I'm just going to be making some marks here and there. Just like I said, loosely following what I see on the reference photo. Constantly changing and adding other colors, the other green, let them blend on paper. It's just so fun to watch how it blends. And then when we do the outline, it really will just look so cool. Get some dark in there. I'm just going around all my different colors here. Get some more transparent yellow. Just look how that's blending on the paper. It's just so pretty. Get some darks in here. Payne's Gray and Quin Gold make a really pretty dark foresty green. Just different variations will make it look like layers of trees there. Bit over here. Looks like there's a little bit of green over here. Some up in here. I'm going to get some more of this yellow. Transparent yellow, lemon yellow, use whatever you have. And I'm just going to kind of drop it in. It kind of pushes the other paint away, and it'll make real pretty blends on the paper. Add some more darks right here. Do some of this Quin Gold. I'm just fiddling. Just put whatever colors you want. Okay, I am going to let that dry, and then I will work on this part, the cliff. While it's drying, I can work on the water down here. So I'm going to use the same Winsor blue, phthalo blue, and I'm going to add just a tad of orange to tone down the blue just a little. They're complementary colors. It'll just tone it down just a little. I'm going to leave some of the white marks of the paper through. It's called Dry Brush. Just to leave a little white speckle here and there. Okay, now we're going to let this dry, but look, oh gosh, I don't think I had this being on the video. I am so sorry. All I did, and I will show you again, is I just went back and forth like this with my brush, and then where there was some skipping over the texture of the paper, I just let it stay that way, just to have some of the white highlight of the paper being sparkle water. So I apologize. I need to pay more attention to the video. Let all this dry. Okay, this is dry. I really like this. It's going to look really awesome when I come in with the ink. So now we're going to work on the rock here. So I'm going to use the same brush. I've got some colors mixed up over here. I've got some ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, some Payne's gray with ultramarine blue, and some burnt sienna. Just kind of different piles of pigment here. Ultramarine and burnt sienna is it's going to granulate some, which is what we want, because we want it to look like, we want some texture to look like rocks. So I'm just going to mix up a little bit more. There is some kind of a burnt sienna color here and there. I'm sure this won't be enough, but that's okay. I'm just going to come in here and use this brush with these downward strokes to kind of imitate the rocks, how the rocks are positioned. And again, just using different colors. This will dry and kind of granulate and look just really kind of cool. I'm going to get some more Payne's gray here, pretty thick Payne's gray. And while it's wet, just kind of drop in where I see darker values here. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just adding some different values. I'm going to get a darker of this gray of ultramarine and burnt sienna. There's a little bit of green in there from the trees, so I'm just going to drop in a little. There's a little tree here. We'll outline that, and it'll kind of look a little bit more like a tree is there. There's some buildings, something up here, not quite sure what it is. It's just a darker color. So we're just going to add some there. Okay, when this is dry, I will do the same thing for this part of the rock. So this is dry, but I'm going to work on this down here. So I'm using the same mix, which was the phthalo blue with a little bit of transparent orange. And I've got a round brush here, and I'm going to do a dry brush on here. I'm just going to tap it on the side to take some of the pigment, a lot of the water out, and just take my brush and just go across the water here. Just kind of tap it just to make some different texture here. I don't want to go over where it's white. I want to keep that, but definitely want to add some other texture. Okay, I think that looks good. Now let's work on this rock here. And I'm using the same colors as I did there. I'm going to make it lighter here at the top because it definitely is lighter, and I want to make sure that it does look like this is in front of that instead of connected to it. So I've got some yellow ochre here that I'm going to start with up here. Add some burnt sienna, just kind of the top of this, a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to just start dropping in the colors. Just kind of looking at this and seeing where the darker values are. There's actually some green up in here, so I'm going to drop some there. When we do some lifting, we can create some shapes in the rock. I don't care that there's some blooms and hard lines there. That will just make it interesting. In fact, I like what it's doing there. I think I'm going to drop in some bits of water here and there. Just drop it in and let it create some interesting textures. Because rock does have interesting textures. You watch how the water pushes the pigment out. You can fiddle with it and get it to do some interesting things here. I'm going to soften this edge here. I think that looks pretty cool. Let's drop in some Payne's gray here. Let's get some dark values going on. I like how that looks right there. It's a little darker at the water. And it looks really cool. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry and then I'm gonna work on the really cool lighthouse. Okay, while this is drying, I'm gonna add a little more darker values in here for the trees. This is completely dry, so I'm just going to kind of just drop in some. Just to kind of create a tree shape. I'm going to take a damp brush and just drop in a little bit of water, let it kind of smooth out however it wants. I'm going to do another one over here because there was one here. Take it up to the top here. You could use a round brush for this, use whatever. I'm just having some trees stand out a bit. And again, a damp brush, just dropping in some water, letting it smooth, kind of blend in. There's a darker little bush thing down here. And a little tree over here. We're going to have it come up a little higher. And I just used some burnt sienna, I'm sorry. I added some Payne's gray to the green that was in there just to make it darker. Okay, damp brush, kind of dab it around, let it blend, let it do whatever it wants to do. And when it dries, it's going to look really cool right here. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here for this tree. give it a little more darker values. When I outline it, it will make it look more three-dimensional, having the different values. And then just dab in damp brush. Let's just add some water to it. This is watercolor, so let's watch it do its thing. See what's happened over here? It's added a lot of dimension. Now when this dries, it'll look really, really cool. Let's see, what else do I want to add? I want to add a little bit up here because there was a tree that kind of stood out up there. Just adding some Payne's gray to this green over here to get a really dark green. Drop in some more here and there while it's still wet. Soften it a little. Okay. I think I'm going to add a little darker here where there was some grasses or something on there, and then just soften it with a damp brush. Not worrying, I'm putting more water on it than I should, but it's going to give it a really cool effect, I think. Now where it's pretty orangey, I'm going to drop in some burnt sienna in places. Soften those edges, add more water than you think you should. Let it create all kinds of blooms. There's a lot of orangey over here. Just taking some water. There we go. There's some orange over here. I'm just going to drop in some more here. It's darker here at the bottom. I'm going to drop in some water here and there while it's still kind of wet. It's a little bit dry in some areas, but it's going to create some really interesting textures. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. It looks like my green got down a little bit too far. I'm just going to dab some of that up, I think. That's looking really cool. Love how the trees look. Just this one is my favorite tree. Okay, let this completely dry. Okay, I'm going to work on the lighthouse. So I've got some, what is it? It is burnt sienna, and it's mixed with a little bit of the watercolor, which is, well, watercolor, that's silly to say, the color I use for the water, which is phthalo blue. So it toned down the orange just a little bit. So I'm just going to start painting the lighthouse. I'm going over the windows and over where I have the shadow line. I'm leaving the ledges still white. That needs to dry. We've got a couple more layers there. We've got some darks, and we have that real pretty red roof back in there. So just let this dry. Okay, so the lighthouse is dry. So I'm going to do another layer of the burnt sienna. Just on the shadow side. Just put a little there, and then I'm spreading it out with water, because that's going to be darker with some shadow color. Just softening these edges just a little. Okay, let's do some Payne's Gray for this top. And then make some little lines here. Okay, let's let that dry. This is looking really good. I love the rocks here at the bottom. Really looks cool. Looks like rocks, which is the goal. Let it dry. Okay, this is all dry. So I've got some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixed up here for the shadows. My color kind of got dry because I waited a while, which is not a bad thing. Okay, I'm just going to do the shadows. And this is all pretty dark over here. Can't wait to add that pop of red for that roof over there. That's going to look awesome. Just a little pop of red. So a little shadow underneath each of these ledges. A little damp brush, kind of smooth it out. Look at these trees. They turned out so good. Okay, I'm going to use another dry brush with whatever I've got left from this blue. A little dry brush action here, and just go across. Several layers of dry brush will really add some texture to the water. It's pretty dark next to the land. Just some dry brush. Okay, I think I'm going to make that it for the dry brush part. So when this dries, I will add the windows, the red roof, and then we're ready for the fun part, which is the ink. I love doing the ink part. Okay, this is dry, so I'm going to do the little windows. When I visited this lighthouse, I actually got to go climb all the way to the top, which was just so amazing to see. If they're not perfectly square, that's okay. When we add the ink, we can fill in any gaps that need to be done. Okay, let's add the red. I've got some bright Windsor red here. Let's get some red on here. There's a little chimney or something at the very top of that red roof. So I'll let it touch the red and go in there and blend. That's okay, I don't mind. When that dries, I'm going to go with another layer for the shadow. Okay, it's dry. So we're going to do another layer for the shadow. Some of that red came down. That's okay. That doesn't bother me. Okay, we need to let this dry, but in the meantime, we're going to do a little lifting here on the rock face here. And I'm going to use this same brush. This is a 1/4 inch flat brush. It's kind of stiff. It was made for gouache, but it works really well for lifting. So I'm rinsing it out, dabbing it. You don't want to introduce a lot of water. Oops, like I just did there. Drop a big drop. And I'm just going to do a little scrubbing and just add some highlights here and there. This area was pretty light right here, so I'm just doing a little scrub. Doesn't take much to add some highlights. I'm just kind of scribbling here and there. I'm not going to do a whole lot down here because I think that looks pretty cool. Just in a couple of areas. Just wherever you think you need some highlights. When I do the ink around the all the different areas of the rock, it'll look really, really cool. Let's see, is that still a little wet? It's still a little wet. Let it completely dry before you start adding any ink. Just trust me on this, because if the ink touches any wet area, it's just going to kind of explode out. But if it does, it'll still look cool. Okay, I'm going to let this dry. I really like my lighthouse. I'm going to make these little white columns here. I didn't draw them into my outline, but I'm going to add them now. So that's just as simple as going up and down with this brush in between the windows, just a little. And it will add those columns. I'm going to do the same here because I got kind of dark there, and that's part of the little railing thing. Okay, I think that gave it the definition it needs. Let me do this one. Oh yeah, that worked. Oh, I love my little lighthouse. These aren't perfectly straight. They're a little leaning, but that's okay. Let it dry before you add the ink. Okay, for the outline, I'm going to use a fountain pen here that has a pretty bold line or a bold nib to it. And then I'm going to use a micron pen, or this is a pigment liner, that has a pretty thin line. It's a 0.1. Can you see that? And this one has a little bolder line to it. Just use whatever you have. You could use the same pen for everything, but I'm going to, for the trees, I want them to stand out a little bit against this dark background, so I'm going to use the bolder pen, the thicker line. So for these trees, all I'm going to do is start loosely going over the different shapes I see. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just very loosely, just the shapes you see that make up this tree. That looks so cool. Do the same for the other tube. And I'm holding the pen way towards the other end of the pen just to make sure I'm keeping it loose. I don't want to make precise, exact outlines. This is the boring part. You don't have to watch this if you don't want. I'm just being very loose and making some outlines. See, it really brought those trees out. Now to do this one. When you drop in those colors kind of haphazardly, it creates all these different shapes. Those trees look so cool. I just love it. Okay, now for the rocks, I think I'm going to use the smaller liner. I may switch to the bigger one. And I'm just outlining the shapes that I see. That really looks cool. Let's go take this on down here. And let's work on the lighthouse. These rocks over here, or whatever that is, I'm not quite sure. I don't think that needs to be outlined. The red roof. The windows. That really looks cool. I like that. Okay, now we're going to outline the rocks over here, all the different shapes. That really looks cool. Now for the background trees, I'm just gonna do some of the shapes. Not all of them, just some. Actually, I'm doing a lot of shapes because I think it looks really cool. I'm not being exact, it doesn't matter. It's kind of an abstract way of doing a painting. I like this. I think this turned out really, really cool. I really like this. Now let's do some up here. The little grass area. I think I'm calling this done. It is so bright, it's so happy. Oh my gosh, I really like it. Of course, it's never done until you put a mat on it. Look how bright and colorful that is. It's really pretty. I really loved being there and climbing up to the top and seeing this view from the shore. It was just a gorgeous place to be. I really liked this. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you again for being a subscriber.